Medfield TV, community shows.
Good morning. Welcome all you people here today. As you know what we're here for, we're here to give praise to those that died so that we may live in freedom. We appreciate everybody coming today. We're sorry we didn't have a parade, but we remember Memorial Day is not just a day for cookouts and fun for the family going to the Cape. The nation mourns the loss of all Americans who died defending their country throughout the world since 1775. These are men and women who have remained mostly anonymous except to the families who loved them. Well, we will start by having Col Foster sing the National Anthem. I'd like everybody to put their hand on their heart and the veterans can salute.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Cole. Cole is a student at Medfield High School graduating this year and the next week, and he is going on to study more music. He sings everything. I'd like to get the Reverend Father Culloty come up here now and offer a benediction. He told me if I didn't say his name correct, he wouldn't come up. Oh, no, he didn't say that.
I said you could go to hell. No. That was the one I was in. I invite you to please join me now in prayer. Loving God, we gather here today to remember those who died, to honor their sacrifice, and to rededicate ourselves, the living, to those values for which they fought and died. Remember those individuals who from the beginning of our nation's founding left home and loved ones in our country's time of need and paid the ultimate price, the sacrifice of their lives. We honor their valor and their courage, and their willingness to put aside their own needs to safeguard the freedoms we enjoy to this day. May they find rest and peace from their labors, and we rededicate ourselves this day so that their sacrifices may not have been in vain, but that the liberties for which they gave their lives may be used by us, the living, in a responsible manner, worthy of the sacrifices they made for us. And may you, our God, give a spirit of peace and of hope to those who mourn the loss of those they love. Amen.
Amen. We invite all the clergy in town to come and join in this with us, but the good Father is the only one that comes. Well, we really appreciate that. I'd like to introduce a few people. First of all, I'd like to say that if you read the program is dedicated some former military personnel who have since passed away, dedicated to memory of Henry Anderson, Edward Grace, James McCordy, Richard Marchand, William Nurse, James O'Brien, Henry Ryan, James Sproul, James Sullivan, and Leo Surratt. I might add that one of our past commanders, Edward Barrett, just died recently also, and we want our praise and thoughts go to his family. We have here the three members of the Board of Selectmen, Mark Fisher, Pete Peterson, and Michael Marcucci. Would you please stand for a sec? Thank you for coming. Holding bearing the colors of the U.S. colors is Chris Danielle, and the Legion colors is his brother Paul Danielle, and the color guards are John Ryan and Randy Dysinger. We have normally a firing squad, which we don't use inside, so we thought it might be a little risky. But we appreciate those that volunteered for that firing squad, and I would like to mention that some of the fellows have done this for a long time and aren't able to do it today, and one is Lenny Haig, and another is Bob Farrell and Rich Pauli. I mean, there's many others that did it, but those three especially are having a little trouble doing that right now, and so we certainly appreciate all their past help. Carl Schwartz is always doing his duty too on it, and he's here today. Now, I knew Richard Werner, and he died in 1944, missing in action, never been found, 72 years ago. He was a friend of mine, even though he was about 5 years older than I. Lived in Medfield, and we want to think about him too. Ann Thompson is here, a longtime selectman. If you want to just say hello. Now I'm going to bring up the gal that's going to do the Gettysburg Address. Taylor Guindon from Blake Middle School, 7th grader. Taylor. It's awful dark up here, but you got better eyes than I.
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. we have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note, nor long remember what we say here, but it will never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Thank you, Taylor. Also here today is Senate Representatives Sean Dooley and Denise Garlick. Thank you. We welcome them here. Thank you for coming on your busy schedule. It's really nice of you. The PA system here, that's put up by Henry Marcel every year. He does a great job. He usually puts it up in the park for us, and he put it up here today because we're coming inside. And this is on the graciousness of Hank Marcel through Memo. Memo owns the equipment. Thank you, Hank. Now, this is where I need the light. This is the guest speaker. A Medfield native, Alexander Stephenson. He's a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Special Forces. He's a senior instructor in the history department at the United States Naval Academy, while he works on his PhD dissertation in international relations at the University of Southern Mississippi. He's a 1991 graduate of Medfield High School, and he was commissioned a regular Army officer, infantry officer in 1995 after graduating from the University of Maine, after serving 3 years as an enlisted man in the Army Reserve and Maine National Guard. He was awarded the Purple Heart for his wounds incurred while deployed in Iraq. He has served in numerous infantry, Signal Corps Special Forces, and staff assignments, including tours with the 82nd Airborne Division, 1st Airborne Division, and the 7th Special Forces Group Airborne. During these assignments, he's deployed overseas to multiple locations across, including combat deployments to Afghanistan and Iraq. In addition to the Purple Heart, his awards include the Bronze Star, Defense Meritorious Service, Army Meritorious Service Medal, Special Forces Tab, Combat Infantryman's Badge, and Master Parachutist Badge, as well as numerous other awards and campaign medals. He's the son of the Reverend Fair Stephenson, Norway, Maine, and of Rebecca and David Stephenson of Medfield. He currently lives in Chesapeake Bay, Maryland, and he has 4 children, Samantha, Grace, Jackson, and Harper. Would you please welcome our hero of the day here, Lieutenant Colonel Stephenson.
Thank you very much. I'm not a hero, but I've known a few, okay? And I'd like to tell you about a few of them today. So thank you for inviting me here today. It's a distinct honor and a privilege to address you all. and hopefully I do honor to the fallen here today in my discussion. President Kennedy once said, "A nation reveals itself not only by the men it produces, but also by the men it honors and by the men it remembers." I believe this to be true, and I'm deeply humbled to be here today, honoring and remembering some of the finest individuals that this country has ever produced. We are here to honor those individuals each generation produces that are willing to lay down their lives in defense of our nation. We do this to honor their memory, but also to teach future generations about the sacrifice and the responsibilities required of a citizen. In addition to my speech here today has two purposes. First, I want to act as a bridge to some of those who had fallen in our recent conflicts. These were my friends, these were my comrades. I can think of at least 20 people off the top of my head that I have known personally that have died in these current conflicts. This gathering might not be the most representative of this, but statistically speaking, most of you don't know anyone that has served in the military, let alone died for their country. So I want to give you a few stories that maybe can help you understand what the current crop of active duty personnel are doing to protect our country. Because only 0.5% of the population currently serves on active duty. Only 7% have ever served in the military. Combined with this, today, we are now more electronically connected, but more physically unconnected with our neighbors. So odds are you don't know anyone who is serving today. And if you do, thank you. With this, the military has become a small and insular community. We don't mix too much with the outside world. So I'm deeply honored to have this opportunity to talk to you today about the sacrifices that our troops, sailors and Marines, airmen and Coast Guardmen are making. Because the Memorial Day is not about honoring those who are serving in the military. It is about honoring those who have fallen. To give you an idea of the character and level of commitment exhibited by these men and women, I want to share you two stories of personal friends of mine. The first is Sergeant First Class Chad Gonzalez. He and I went through the Special Forces qualification course together in 2000 and 2001. He was from California. He was married and had 3 small children, a son when he died who was 4, and then 2 twins who were 2 years old. We went through the course together, as I said, and he excelled. He had dropped out of high school, but found his home in the Army, and he excelled. He passed through scuba school, sniper school, all technically and physically demanding courses, and he thrived. He became fluent in Spanish, and he found his home in the Army. In February of 2005, he earned the Bronze Star for Valor in Afghanistan, and then 2 weeks later, he hit an IED and he was killed, leaving behind his wife and 3 children. Chad had found a home in the Army. He had always wanted to be in the Army, and he loved to serve, okay? And that is what maybe is different between him and the majority of the population today. The other person I'd like to share with is a soldier that served under my command in Iraq in 2007, Greg Sutton. He also had 3 children, both small children, 4, 2, and 3. And he had been a part of a military family. He had joined because he had always wanted to serve. He had missed out on Iraq and Afghanistan up until 2006, and he volunteered to go with my team over to Iraq. He served selflessly. He often volunteered for patrols. He didn't have to because he wanted to give other people rest. And then one day, our last day in Baghdad, we were on patrol, and he was in my vehicle, and he was killed on an IED. Again, this was a man who didn't have to be there, but volunteered to go and to protect our country. I'm not telling you about these 2 men because they were out of the ordinary. In fact, they are typical of the people who are serving today. They volunteered to do this, and they serve without complaint. But more importantly, they are all like you. They like to binge watch shows. They have families who do sports, have activities. They are just like you. And that's the thing that I want you all to know, that we are no different from you. We are just like you. This is my hometown. this town made me what I am today. And it instilled in me the desire to serve. And all of these people who have died have that same feeling. We also need to remember not only those who have fallen, but their families. As Chief Mann said, often these people agonize and heal in private. We don't see their grief and the scars that these wars have produced. So I want to remember them as well as those who have fallen today. This leads me to the second point that I want to make today. A call to action. Just like in the Gettysburg Address, when Lincoln talks about finishing the work that those who have fallen have left for us to finish, I want you to now reflect on the sacrifices of these people, but also the work that is left undone. It is up to us, the living, to make good on the promises of our founding principles and those those who have fallen on the battlefield have earned and protected for us. When people thank me for my service, I never really know what to say, so I usually just give an awkward thank you and move on. So this speech gives me an opportunity to expound on that a little bit more. Again, President Kennedy said, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. And that's what I'd ask you to do. Do thank our service members for their service. Remember the fallen, but also turn that appreciation and respect for their sacrifice into action. Commit yourself to doing your part and make a difference. At a most basic level, exercise your rights. Vote in every election. Choose leaders who you think will employ our troops in a wise manner so that their sacrifices will not be in vain. Make connections with your community. Volunteer your skills and energy to improve our country. Commit yourselves to making our country better and do not let their ultimate sacrifice go in vain. We've been given a great gift, paid for by others, and we must ensure that we make the most of it. In closing, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. It was a deep honor, and I would like to leave with the words of Civil War General John Logan, who said, "Let no neglect, no ravages of time testify to the present or the coming generations that we have forgotten as a people the cost of a free and undivided republic." And that's what I would like you to remember today, the cost of keeping our country free and safe. This was true in 1865, and it is true today. Thank you for allowing me to keep this promise, and thank you for allowing me to talk to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you very much for coming all this distance to come back to your hometown and help us out today. We now have a group of young ladies and men over here from the school that will sing for us America Beautiful. They call the Trills and Chills Acapella Group. Thank you. Very nice. One of my favorite numbers. They also want to thank the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, and Lions Club members, Legion members, and other veterans for coming here today. We also thank the Sons of the American Legion that do the work every Memorial Day. They're in there cooking, and so if you hear some clatter in there, you know what it is. If they're going to cook you a hamburger, so they do their job too. I'd like to call up Ann Thompson to come to the podium, please. I've participated in this Memorial Day since 1955, and I used to walk it all the time. I marched all the time until I couldn't no longer do it a few years ago. But the Girl Scouts have participated 100 years, and Ann is going to tell us a little bit about it. Ann's a former Girl Scout herself. Are you still in the Girl Scouts, Ann?
It was 1902 when I was in the Girl Scouts. No, I wanted to tell you a little about, this is the 60th anniversary, 100th anniversary, excuse me, for the Girl Scouts in Medfield. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It was started by two women, Mary Haskell and Lois Inches. They started it in 1916 during the First World War. Second year, Evelyn Bing took it over. Evelyn Bing was a widow. She'd never had children. Her husband died shortly after they were married. She lived here for years and years and years. And Evelyn Bing decided the kids and the girls should be ready for war and be ready to protect themselves. So she pushed survival skills. She taught Morse code. She taught them how to make surgical dressings. She did all kinds of stuff like that for the Girl Scouts to get them ready for life in general as well as life with the war. She was absolutely, totally dedicated to it. And she did a marvelous job. Evelyn Bing was so good that when I became a Girl Scout leader in 1965, a few years later, Evelyn Bing was still involved in Girl Scouts, despite never having mothered a Girl Scout herself. And I think it's amazing. She has done so much, the Girl Scouts have done so much, as the Boy Scouts have. And I think we're very, very lucky that we've had Girl Scouts in this life for over 100 years, and I hope they make it for 100 more.
Thank you, Ann, and thank you to the Girl Scouts. I'd like to call up Ron Griffin, current service officer, veteran service officer, that is. We've had some great service officers in this town for the veterans. Phil Burr, Paul Curran, Jerry Doucette, Ron Griffin, and I'm sorry if I missed any others, but those are the ones I know. So Ron is going to have a dedication. We've rededicated the area outside for Peter Christoph, and Ron's going to take care of that. It would normally be out there in front of the new stone.
Hi, my name is Ron Griffin, and I am the Town of Medfield's Veteran Service Officer. And I'm also a member of the Medfield Committee to Study Memorials. As you arrive today here on Peter Christoph Way, I hope you notice at the entrance is something a little bit different and much more beautiful. The Committee to Study Memorials worked with Troop 10 Eagle Scout candidate Evan Gavrilides, and he's here today. Evan, please stand. Also contributing significantly to the project was the American Legion Post, with Post 110, the Medfield Highway Department, and Ackerman's Monuments in Holliston. The large rock originally served as Medfield's Vietnam War Memorial many years before the one at Baxter Park was erected. It was placed here on the flagpole outside on Memorial Day in 1976. The original inscription said, "In memory of the men of Medfield who gave their lives and served their country in the Vietnam War." The plaque is now replaced with the information about Peter Christoph. There is also a sign providing observers with a little insight into the person of Peter Christoph, and I'd like to read that to you. And Peter's brother Michael, I believe, is here. So any of these words are his words and his family's words. This is their memories. Peter Frank Christoph was born in Springfield, Massachusetts on June 23, 1950, the son of Stephen and Kathleen Christoph. The Christoph moved to Medfield from New Rochelle, New York in 1965 and settled on 23 Belknap Road. Peter had two brothers, David and Michael. Peter attended Medfield High School, where he was a student on the track team. He specialized in the pole vault. Peter's friends told how he loved to race his 57 Chevy through the town and challenge others to race, which he always won. He, like most Medfield kids back then, hung out by the water bubbler in front of Town Hall. There, Peter would tell his friends how he looked up to his older brother, David, who was in the Army, and how he always wanted to serve his country. He graduated from Medfield High School with the class of 1968 and enlisted in the United States Marine Corps that October. He was sent to Vietnam in April of 1969, where he arrived in the infantry. On August 10th, 1969, he was killed in action on Mudder's Ridge, Hill 484, Quang Tri Province, Vietnam. It was reported that Peter was in his foxhole on the wire with a private Turner when a direct mortar attack hit while protecting other members of the platoon. Only 6 Marines walked off that hill the next morning, and Peter was not one of them. The students of Medfield, small, close-knit high school, were devastated with the loss of the popular, well-known former student who had given his life for his country. Peter was laid to rest in Medfield's Vine Lake Cemetery. On Memorial Day, 1978, this street, formerly part of Grove Street, was renamed Peter Christoph Way, and in his honor on Memorial Day 2016 was rededicated with this plaque. The information on the sign is provided also in your Memorial Day program. It's so easy to forget that all these we honor today lived ordinary lives once. They lived routinely in our community. They were loved, and they loved. Most of their life was enjoyed as a child, as their adult life was just so brief. Peter is the last of Medfield's many servicemen and women who lost his life while service in this country. Since 1969, our town has not known or had to endure nor witness the enormous grief that comes to their family and to each of us personally. I thank you for coming today as we honor those who lived in freedom. Let us remember Peter Christoph always.
Good job, Ron. I'd like to mention also that we have a pond up here on Green Street named Stephen Hinckley Pond, and that is in honor of Stephen Hinckley, who was also killed in Vietnam. We had one that died in Korea with the name George Snyder. He was a pal of mine too. Usually when we're out here after the end of the parade, we have a former chaplain and past commander of the Legion saying a few words named George Hinckley, brother of Stephen Hinckley. George is laid up, so he couldn't come here today, and so it was very gracious of the Veterans Agent to do this, and we appreciate it. I'd like to also thank the Legion Auxiliary, the bunch of ladies around here that are selling poppies, and we'd like you to buy one. That helps run their programs. They go to the VA hospital and send packages to servicemen, and it's a very small unit, but a hard-working unit. Michelle Doucette is on the committee, and her mother, June, is very active in it, and Laurie Guindon that made the programs up. She did a nice job in the program. She's a member of it too, among other people here. Now, normally, we would have the placing of the wreaths. The wreaths have already been placed at the various locations at the memorials. And we'd like we have two buglers here, and we'd like to have them play taps. Abigail, Darmofal, and, wow, Emily Bozadjian, or something like that. I'm sorry, Emily and Abigail. Thank you, girls. Wonderful, wonderful job. Now we'll ask the young singers to come back up here and sing My Country 'Tis of Thee. You know, normally we go down to the cemetery and we cast some flowers upon the water for those, in honor of those that died at sea, and then we go up to the Legion plot up there for all members of the service, and then come down to the hall here. So, folks.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside, let freedom ring.
Thank you to all those that are still in the service. My granddaughter, Kendra Cunningham, is in Baghdad, I'm sorry to say. Now I'd like to call up Father Culloty again to say benediction.
The ancient prophet Micah once said that God asked three things of God's people: that we might love justice, that we might show mercy, that we might walk humbly with our God. May those whose memory we honor this day inspire us to work for justice, to reach out with mercy, especially to those most in need, and to help all of us to walk with God until that day when our loving and merciful God unites us again with those whose memory we honor this day. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Father. What do you think, Al? We got anything further?
I think we're done. Thank you.
I think we're done, and would be a little while, and the Sons of the Legion will bring out a little collation for you. Thank you all again for coming. See you next time.